In today's data-driven organizations, the classification of documents is critical, and doing so inefficiently can be time-consuming, resource-intensive, and error-prone. So I'm going to show you how to build an AI-powered application using Orkes Conductor that should automate that process for you. This application is going to identify PDF documents from a provided URL. It's going to classify those documents into categories such as a W-2 form, a driver's license, or pay stub, or many others. Lastly, it'll handle any errors for unsupported file types. Before we start building the workflow itself, let me show you what it's going to look like when we're all done. We're going to start off with a switch task that's going to check if the input URL points to a PDF file. In the two possible cases, if it's a PDF, it's going to proceed to retrieve and process the PDF document. And if it's something other than a PDF, it's going to handle that by generating an error message and terminating the workflow. Next up, it's going to use a get document task to retrieve and extract text from the PDF. Now that will be followed by another switch task that's going to determine if the document is text-based or requires OCR processing. If it requires OCR processing, there's going to be a task that's going to handle that step as well. And in the case where it's a non-text-based PDF that requires OCR processing, we're going to use an external worker that we register with Conductor, and I'll show you how we do that when we get to that step. And as we round out the workflow, we're going to format the extracted text, and then we'll use an LLM text complete task that's going to use a prompt to categorize the document into predefined categories. And the last step is it's going to publish those results. I'm going to start by going to Orkes.io and clicking on the Start for Free button here on the screen. That's going to take you to our Orkes Developer Edition, which is a developer sandbox with its own namespace just for you. I'm going to click Login to continue. If you haven't used it before, though, you'll have a Sign Up button here. Go through a couple small steps, and then you'll begin to the tool. Our first step is to create a worker task that we'll use to extract text from the PDF. So on the left, under Definitions, we're going to click on Task. And in the upper right corner, we're going to click on the Define Task button. We're going to give that a name. In this case, I'll call it Extract Text from PDF. It requires a description. In this case, I'm just going to paste the same as the name of the task, but this is a good place to put a full description of what this task actually does if you're going to use it in production. Next, we hit Save in the upper right corner, and you'll see a quick diff here that tells you there was nothing before, and now this is what your task looks like. I'll hit Confirm Save in the upper right corner, and now we have this new task. Next, we're going to create the full workflow. And to save ourselves a little bit of time, if you check out the blog here linked on the screen, you'll find the full JSON configuration for this workflow. So what we'll do is click on Define Workflow in the upper right corner. You can see in this workflow, there's nothing configured yet. So I'm going to click on the Code tab on the right-hand side. I'm going to highlight what's here, and I'm going to replace it with the copied JSON from the blog itself. If you want to locate that, go to the link here on my screen, and you can follow all the instructions to build out this workflow and application yourself, including the JSON necessary to build out this workflow. Awesome. Conductor has told us that there's no problems found, so this JSON is exactly what it needs to be. So I'm going to click on the Save button in the upper right corner. We've got a little diff that tells us there was nothing here before, and now this is what we have for this workflow. I'll click Confirm. And now we have a new workflow called Document Classifier Workflow. You can see the description's been listed because that's already in the JSON we copied over, and all the other attributes are listed here, so we are ready to go. Next up, we need to create the OCR worker task that's going to do the evaluation of non-text-based PDFs so we can get that extraction out and use it later in the workflow. There is a prerequisite for this instance. You're going to need Node.js version 20.18.2 or later. So please make sure you have that set up and installed first before you proceed. Now, here in Developer Edition, we're going to create a new application. So I'll scroll down to on the left-hand side under Access Control, click Applications. You'll see that I have nothing here now. So I'm going to click on Define an Application. We'll give it a name. I'm going to call it documentclassifier.app. I'll hit Save, and we have a new application. Something to note about our Developer Edition, since it is a sandbox, the admin role under unrestricted roles is already checked off, and under application roles, workers are already checked off. The rest of these cannot be tuned here in Developer Edition. Next, we'll need to create some access keys. So I'll click on the Create Access Key button. Now, note, you'll need to make sure to copy both of these keys and save them for future use. After you leave this screen by clicking OK, I understand, you will not be able to access this information again. You'll have to delete it and create new keys. Not a big deal, but it does mean you have to update the application later on. Now that I have them saved off in a different file, I'll click OK, I understand. The next step is I need to create that external Node.js worker that lives on my local machine and then register it to Orkes Conductor. So the first thing I'm going to do is open up a terminal. I'm going to run npm init -y to get that set up. I've already done these steps in advance, so we're just going to get an output and to verify that it works. And then in the blog, you will find a command that you need to run to install all the dependencies for this as well. Our next step is to create the external worker that will handle the processing for us. So I'm going to open up my terminal. I'm going to create a new folder for this worker that we'll put the project files into. I'm going to call this one node worker. Great. I'll move into that folder now. The next thing we need to do is run npm init-y to get this established. I've already run this command, so it is showing me what I've already done. And then there's a command that is listed in the blog itself that will create all the project files and dependencies necessary. So I'll just paste that from the blog directly into my terminal, and you can see what that looks like here. Go ahead and run that. And once it's completed, we'll go take a look at the folder to make sure everything is there that is necessary. Great, that finished. Next, I'm going to open up my IDE. I already had the folder open called Node Worker, and you can see that in this folder now we have a number of Node modules and some other JSON files necessary, so the project is ready to go. Next up, we need to create the worker itself. So I'm going to start with a new file called index.js, and we get the worker code from the blog. So I'm going to switch over to the blog and show you that here on this page, there's a section called worker code. I'm just going to click the copy button, go back to my IDE, paste that in, and hit save. And now we've got that created and ready to go. The only changes we need to make to this file is to add in our API key and our secret, along with the URL to our cluster within Orkes Developer Edition. The server URL we need to configure here points to our Developer Edition and its API. So I'm going to put in developer.orkescloud.com/API. And to complete this step, we just need to run the worker. I'll go ahead and open up a terminal. We're already in the folder, so I'm going to run node index.js. And you can see that it has begun running. This worker is running now. We can go ahead and jump back to Developer Edition and continue on with the application build. Now that that's done, we need to create a new integration to an LLM model so we can move on with the workflow. So I'm going to scroll down to the Integrations tab here on the left, click on New Integration, and what you'll find here is a list of all the different LLM providers we already have mapped in Developer Edition. So you can pick whichever one you want. In this case, I'm going to use Anthropic Claude. Now, I've already built this integration. I'll show you what that looks like in a moment. But all you would do here is click on the Anthropic Claude button called Add. You would give the integration a name. And the key point is you'll need to add your API key here. I'm going to take a quick break from building out the application to let you know that anytime you're going to incorporate a new LLM provider into your application, you'll need to make sure to connect that and get the API key. That's really critical to do before you build this out, or at least at this step. You're also going to need to know the exact model name, which you get from the LLM provider's site or the developer portal. If I go back into our integrations portal, in the case of Anthropic Claude, which I'm going to use for this example, if I click on the docs link there, it will take you to our Orkes Conductor docs that explains exactly how to get your Anthropic Claude credentials. We have this for each of the LLM providers listed, so make sure to go through these steps here at this point to get, if you don't already have a developer account with them, get one, to get your API key and get the exact model name that you're going to use, because that's going to be very critical. I'm going to click cancel on this page and show you how I've already set up my integration. So for Anthropic Claude, we'll click on that. I gave it the name Anthropic Claude just to make it really easy to understand. I had already pasted my API key here. The API endpoint is listed here. We already have that built out for you to make this simple. And then I just gave it a description. You would hit save, and that would take you back to this screen. Now, the next step you need to make sure to do when you're building that integration is on the right-hand side of this window under the Actions column. One of these buttons is a little circle with a plus that says Add or Edit Models. You'll need to make sure to click that for whichever integration you build. Here's where you're going to add the exact model name. I mentioned earlier that you need to have that. Make sure that you have the exact one because that is really critical for this to work. So you would click on the New Model button. In the model name field, this is where you paste the exact model name that is referenced by that provider. And then you can give a description if you want. So you can see I already have Claude 3.5 Sonnet listed here, but if I wanted to add others, I could do that as well. So our next step is to create the prompt that will get sent to our LLM provider and the model to actually do the classification for us. I'm going to click on AI prompts, and in the upper right corner, I'll click on the Add AI Prompt button. That will take me to this window. We'll give it a name, and under the models pull down, you're going to select the integration you built in the last step I have a few here, but I'll go ahead and pick Anthropic Claude because that's what I mentioned. And now this prompt will be connected to that integration that you've already set up. We can give it a description. I'm just going to give it the same as the name I have before, but you can be more creative and more explanatory about that. And then under prompt template, this is where we're going to put the prompt itself. To save you some time, I'm going to go back to the blog and show you that under step 4 here, we'll scroll down a little bit and we actually have the prompt template for this use case. So I'm just going to copy that, go back into Developer Edition, and under prompt template, I will just paste it. And then I can hit save in the upper right corner. Again, we see that there was nothing before under the diff, and now we have something. I'll hit confirm save, and now this prompt exists. We do have a step here that if you'd like to test out the prompt and see that it is working properly before the workflow is ever run, you can click here in the upper right corner. It says select model to test. You can pick your model. You can add in some information, including a variable to substitute in for text, which is, if you look on the left, you'll see that in the prompt, this section right here. So you can kind of put a stand-in in place and test it to verify that it is working the way you want it to. Now, let's go back to the main workflow and get this LLM integration connected to it. So I'll go back and click on workflow in the left side of the window. Click on my document classifier workflow here at the top of the list. So I'm going to scroll down in the workflow and look for the task called classify using LLM. This is a LLM text complete task. So I'm going to click on that. You'll see a bunch of attributes listed here on the right-hand side in the visualizer. And you'll notice that here in the middle where it says LLM provider, there's 3 fields: LLM provider, model, and prompt template. This is where we're going to change these to what we created in the last couple of steps. So provider, I'm going to change to Claude. Model, I'm going to change to Claude 3.5 Sonnet. And then under prompt template, I'm going to select doc classifier prompt. And to wrap up the LLM integration, we just need to add the prompt variable text with a parameter as evaluate text ref. I'm just going to add one additional piece here as result. This is a string, and that task is now done. Now that we've done that, this workflow is completed and ready to be run. So I'm going to click on the save button in the upper right corner. You'll see there's a diff here, just like we've seen before. Hit confirm, and now this workflow is saved and it's ready to be run. So to do so, I'm going to click on the Run tab here in the visualizer. And you'll notice at the top we have an input params field where we can manipulate this to send into the workflow to be evaluated. If I go back to the blog, you'll notice that under the section where we've completed the LLM provider creation piece, the next step says to run the workflow, and we have those input parameters listed here for you. You can simply click the copy button in the window, or you could highlight that section if you want to, however you want to handle it. I'll go back into Developer Edition. You can see the string that's listed here is pointing to a test W2 form that is full text. We're going to see what that does. I'm going to click on Run Workflow. This will send me over to the workflow executions window where it's going to monitor. And you can see nice green boxes where it's telling us things are running. Great. Now we can see that the status here in the top of the window has changed to this green box that says completed. And you notice that on the right-hand side in the visualizer, after every switch task, they've changed to green with little checkboxes telling us these states have been completed or processed. You'll even notice that at the second switch task, where there's an option for OCR processing, that is not highlighted because this link we provided was to a full text PDF, so no OCR was necessary. It detected that automatically, moved on. The evaluate text step was completed. It classified using the AI model, extracted the classification, and the workflow completed. Now to check and see what the output of this actually was, we'll click on the workflow input/output tab, and you can see your input was here on the left, and the output it provided was on the right. And if you want to get a better sense of what that actually looks like in its practical sense, I'll go back over to the blog, and this is what we actually fed it. If I go back over to the blog, you can see exactly what was input through that URL that we provided in the parameters. So it's a text-based W2 form, and the output looks a little bit different in my window, but essentially what you get in the output is the formatted result when this AI is able to take the prompt, scan this information, and give us a specific output of what's in that document. Now let me show you one other example where we send it a parameter value that isn't a PDF and see what the results look like. I'll go back into Conductor and click on the Workflow tab on the left, click on my Document Classifier Workflow, and then back under the Run tab for our workflow, we're going to change this document URL to something else. I'm going to change this to a different file that we have set up that is a year-to-date pay stub template but it's a JPEG file. So let's go ahead and run that. We can notice almost immediately that when it checked to see if it's a PDF here in this very first switch task, it realized it wasn't. It's a JPEG. That's not supported in this specific example, and it followed the error handling path and gracefully terminated the workflow for us. You're probably asking yourself, well, that's really great, but what if I have an input URL that doesn't include a PDF extension? What if the input is in an image file or a document that falls into a category that isn't listed, requiring some kind of, manual verification without disrupting the workflow? No worries. We're actually developing an advanced version of this workflow that can handle those scenarios seamlessly. That blog will be out really soon. If this resonated with you, check out a few of our other videos on building AI-centric workflows and join the community in both Slack and Discourse. Thanks for watching.